Carlos Sainz has decided to continue his F1 career with Williams in a move that was practically forced thanks to Ferrari signing Hamilton from 2025 onwards. However, it doesn't seem like the three-time race winner is willing to stay with the Grove-based squad if a better opportunity arises in his career. Amid the shakeups that are happening in Red Bull and Mercedes, Sainz has reportedly put a clause that is rather controversial and interesting, and it's one that Williams will hope with all of their hearts won't come to fulfillment. But what does Sainz's signature for Williams mean for the remainder of the vacant seats? And more importantly, is this the final move in the silly season? It's safe to say that Sainz signing with Williams was not really a surprise, considering the fact that his entire negotiating team, including his agent, was seen leaving Williams Motorsport home in Spa. But what is very interesting is that he's reportedly signed a multi-year deal contract that could be gone as early as 2025 if a better opportunity arises in more competitive teams like Red Bull and McLaren. Sainz has been used to driving in high-performance squads like McLaren and Ferrari for the past couple of years, and even before that he scored solid points with Renault, so being at the back of the grid with Williams was definitely not something that he had written in the stars, which is why this activation clause comes at a very interesting point in his career. For example, if Verstappen or Perez are to leave Red Bull's nest from 2025 onwards, then Sainz will be open to negotiating for it if both sides come to an agreement. What helps Sainz here is that he has a multi-year deal contract with Williams, whereas if he signed it with Mercedes for 2025, it would most likely have only been for that season, meaning that from 2026 he would have had to look for another place, and a silly season happens every once in a while. Therefore, the risk of a sabbatical in 2026 would have been higher. Many bashed Williams for why they would accept a contract that is effectively putting their driver in a position of leaving the seat as early as in 2025. But it's a very interesting and rather risky situation that the team has invested themselves in here. Sainz might have signed a contract with Williams, but there is a contract clause that is super interesting. Let me explain this. If there is any chance that Red Bull or Mercedes will offer a free seat from the next season onward, Sainz will be allowed to leave Williams and join one of these two teams. The reason why Williams signed this type of contract is because they're betting that no bigger turbulences will come down the road on this matter, and they would end up seeing at the end of the contract with Sainz a driver they believe they could centre their team around. Therefore, headed into the 2025 season, there is a risk from both Sainz and Williams that they have taken, and it's up to us to see which side is going to benefit more. When it comes to Red Bull, it's safe to assume that Verstappen would want to see at the end of his contract, that is in 2028. However, we've seen recently that the RB20 has failed to deliver the results that many expected from it, and Verstappen, being Verstappen, would normally want to drive the fastest car on the grid. This is something that would put a huge threat on his future with Red Bull, and something that Sainz would hope will happen sooner rather than later, as there's no doubt that Mercedes is back in contention and it will be even stronger in the upcoming period. But 3 doesn't fit into 2, and if this is to happen, even Russell's future could be a threat, as recent reports stated that he's entered talks with Audi if an apocalyptic scenario of Verstappen and Antonelli being teammates in 2025 does go on to happen, which is, well, close to zero. Elaborating on his signature with Williams, Sainz expressed full faith that the team could be back in contention sooner rather than later, adding, "I am very happy to announce that I will be joining Williams Racing from 2025 onwards. I am convinced that this team has all the right ingredients to make history again, and starting on January 1st, I will give my absolute best to drive Williams forward alongside every single member of the team." For example, a lot has to happen for Mercedes and Red Bull to lose their stability and to have a shake-up in their drivers' lineup, and even if Perez underperforms, it's unlikely that he'll be replaced by one of Red Bull's drivers, and the only opportunity that Sainz will have here is to replace Verstappen. On the other hand, Mercedes seems to be locked in with the lineup of Russell and Antonelli, and for them to change this, it would have to be a very heavy underperformance from the Italian driver and a swap of drivers between Antonelli and Sainz, which is something that Williams Williams will certainly hope won't happen. Nevertheless, Sainz is now looking towards a very interesting scenario, and one of them is Antonelli being present in Mercedes. Everything points towards the fact that the young Italian driver will be driving for the Silver Arrows from 2025 onwards, not just because of his talent, but also because of his ability to adapt to F1 machinery with such great speed. However, being 17 years of age and driving F1 cars definitely comes with a huge amount of pressure, especially if you're to drive alongside somebody who already has a couple of race wins in his career with this team and is more experienced than you, as Russell's journey started all the way back in 2019. Be that as it may, Williams were left without a choice when it came to signing a high-profile driver, because other than Sainz, Bottas was the only one experienced that was available, as well as Kevin Magnussen, with the difference that the Dane is lacking race-winning experience and battling up at the front. The reason why Williams opted for this type of deal is because they believe that the turbulences in Mercedes and Red Bull would be pretty low in the upcoming period, and that 2025 won't bring any major changes, such as Verstappen going to Mercedes or Antonelli underperforming and having to be demoted to Williams as a replacement for Sainz. Nevertheless, this is shaping up to be a very interesting situation for the other teams as well, especially like Alpine, who, although they tried to sign Sainz, it seems like they're missing something that he recognised and decided to go with the Grove-based squad. Even though Gasly publicly went to lobby for his team to sign Sainz, that didn't help, and they are now left with two choices, Jack Doan and Mick Schumacher. The German driver has more experience in the sport, even though it's quite controversial when it comes to how he ended up his F1 career with Haas, but the WEC Voyage is putting him high on the list of candidates to replace Ocon. With the entire restructure of Alpine, it's safe to assume that they would like to give Doan a proper chance to prove that he is the next big thing in this sport. But with the problems that they are facing recently, they might even hold talks with a driver like Bottas. But the Finn is now more than likely to commit to Sauber, a team that Audi has taken over 100% from 2026 onwards and has a full influence on who drives for them in the upcoming season. Sainz was definitely the key driver that held up so many others, and now that Sargent has lost his seat, it's evident that the next one on the radar is Joe, who's been heavily underperforming compared to his teammate Bottas, which is one of the primary reasons why Valtteri would be the preferred choice for the German squad. A duo of Hülkenberg and Bottas, both experienced, and with Bottas being a 10-time race winner for Mercedes, is definitely the perfect ingredient for Audi to make a race-winning car even sooner than expected. And with the arrival of Binotto as the chief technical officer, it would be really interesting to see where the team would be headed with this combo if it does come to reality. But on the other hand, we must not forget that there is a situation with a young and aspiring driver called Liam Lawson, who has a contract clause with Red Bull that if they do not give him a driving seat in one of their two teams in 2025, he'll be open to looking for it somewhere else. As of now, the only team that he could find himself in other than the Red Bull nest is Audi, and the German squad did express their interest in the young Kiwi driver, especially considering the fact that he's had a solid 5-race stint in 2023, scoring 2 points in Singapore and being the highest finishing AlphaTauri driver at that time. With how the entire Perez situation worked out, for Lawson to receive the Racing Bull seat, it would have to be Ricciardo leaving the team, which is something that we don't really see happening anytime soon, even though Marco stated that the wishes of the shareholders of the team are loud and clear. This is a team that should consist of young drivers, even though the experience that Ricciardo has put into developing the car has been rather valuable and much needed in these tough times. With all this in mind, do you think that Sainz's move to Williams was an expected one? And more importantly, do you think that he'll activate the clause that's in his contract if the circumstances arise? Let us know what you think down in the comments below, and once you've done that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.